Today, I have a very special guest. I'm with Ali Oliver, Chief Executive at the Youth Sport Trust in England, a very special charity devoted to changing young people's lives through sport. Ali was recently awarded an MBE for services to sport in the Queen's Birthday Honours List. Absolutely incredible. Ali joined the Youth Sport Trust in 2004 and has fulfilled the roles of Implementation Director, Sports Director and Managing Director before becoming CEO in July 2015. Prior to this, Ali was the Deputy Director of the Sport of University of Bath, having initially been the course leader and the initial teacher training programme for the physical education programme. Before this, Ali was the head of PE at Millfield School, having started her career teaching in Essex. During her career, Ali has worked with and on behalf of a range of organisations. She supported the British Olympic Foundation's education programme back in 2004 and delivered the Paralympic Inspiration Programme on behalf of the British Paralympic Association in London 2012. Ali is also a member of the selection panel of the Young Person's Sports Personality of the Year. She's currently on the board member of the Healthy Learning Trust, a trustee of Chance to Shine, and advisor of the Sheffield Hallam University on their sports strategy. Ali has also worked on a number of international assignments, including a project with the Sport and Recreation South Africa, which was part of the International Inspiration Programme. So I'm really pleased to welcome today Ali Oliver, MBE. How are you, Ali?
All right, suitably embarrassed by the long intro. Taking up most of your interview time, but thank you for your kind words, David. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thanks for your patience there. And yeah, I was just thinking back, Ali. I actually met you last year when you were in Australia at the National Sports Convention in Melbourne. So how time flies, and you were really generous to give me some of your time when I popped over to England last year and came to your headquarters there at Loughborough University.
Fond memories. Seems a very long time ago now.
Yeah, there's a lot happened, hasn't there? Yeah, for sure.
You're right. Yeah.
So we'll get straight into it, Ali. What does well-being mean to you?
So I think well-being, I guess like everybody, it means two things. It means the state of mind at any moment in time. How am I feeling right now? Am I feeling happy, contented, satisfied? But beyond that, it's this much broader concept. And certainly I and the Youth Sport Trust ascribe to this much more holistic definition of well-being, being everything from our physical and social and emotional health, which is where we focus most of our efforts for children and young people, but also for adults, economic well-being, life satisfaction, psychological well-being, all those parts contribute to it. But at its base level, our principle kind of takes us right back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if we don't experience personal well-being in all those forms, then our ability to achieve our potential and be fulfilled in life and be successful and positive contributors to society is much less likely. So it has a definition, but its meaning is much greater. It's what we can do when we are well, healthy and happy. That's really what we're striving for.
Yeah, and to keep you happy and healthy, what are some of the strategies that you use to keep your well-being in check then?
Mine, okay.
Yeah, your personal.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? We at the Youth Sport Trust, we use the 5 ways to well-being. I'm sure you're familiar with, David. They're kind of by the New Economics Foundation on behalf of the Foresight Commission here in the UK, and I think they've been adopted in New Zealand as well. But while until I became aware of them, I wasn't particularly conscious that I did all these things. But obviously, number one, I try and keep myself physically active. That is one of the 5 ways to well-being. Stay active.
Yeah.
I absolutely know my job plays a huge part in my well-being, and another one of those ways to well-being is giving back. And I think working for the Youth Sport Trust, which, as you've said, is a charity, it's on a mission to try and make a positive difference in the world. That really helps. But then, of course, my family and my friends, that whole concept of connectedness, making sure I invest time in that, and as a result gain a huge amount back from that social circle. Try and keep learning all the time, and nothing better, I think, to make you realize that there's a bigger world out there and there are always things to learn and put in perspective, actually, sometimes your well-being. And then most of all, I've been running this morning, and the thing I love about running is not just the physical bit of it, it's just the opportunity to take notice of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So it was a bit dark here in the UK this morning. I got my head torch on, and I saw all sorts of wildlife. I saw the sun come up, and all of those sorts of things give us a sense of balance. So all of those things, David.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think, if you can get out there and do that exercise in the morning, it just makes you feel, good for the whole day, doesn't it? That you've actually done something and succeeded. And but I really like that you talk about growth and purpose. Purpose is such an important thing for a lot of people in terms of their well-being. And making people feeling satisfied and that they're contributing. And I know at the Youth Sport Trust, obviously, that's a big part of your mission in helping young people. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I think I'm right in saying this year marked the 25th anniversary of the Youth Sport Trust. So congratulations. That's a huge achievement for you, your team, and I'm sure a lot of people from over the years. But tell me about the role of the Youth Sport Trust in the health and wellness system.
Sure. Well, you're right. It wasn't probably the best year to have as your 25th anniversary. A lot of our plans have gone out the window, but we won't. That's for sure. So our role, you've already mentioned, we're a children's charity, but we're absolutely passionate about the power of play, sport, physical activity to contribute to young people's futures. And historically, I guess, when we started off 25 years ago, we went for what I think at the time was the highest point of leverage in building a brighter future for young people, given we are the Youth Sport Trust. So when we started off, most of our effort was focused in improving the quality and inclusiveness of physical education. We knew that from a physical, social and emotional well-being perspective, play and sport, physical education has such a big contribution to not only young people's lives, but their attitudes and beliefs and feelings towards physical activity later in life. And in our primary schools in England, no specialist teachers for physical education, and there was a real need to help the classroom teacher deliver something they feel confident, competent to do, and that the children would enjoy, but it would be inclusive. This wasn't, about teaching technical skills of sport to children at the most formative ages. So that's where we started. And we kind of went through quite an exciting period, which was the period of the TOPS programs, which I have no idea whether any of the listeners to this will remember.
I remember the TOPS programs. I was doing that in Hartlepool many years ago.
Good man. Well, TOPS was our sort of first suite of programs, and it was designed, it was a bag of equipment, some training and some resource cards, and we still see those big blue TOPS bags around in PE.
Brilliant.
And so on. But what's brilliant is the bags are no longer the exciting bit of the program. The exciting bit was how we help teachers deliver more inclusively. So we went through that period, and we were able to roll out TOPS to every local authority in England, and then in partnership with Sport Wales, Sport Northern Ireland, Sport Scotland, into the home nations as well. And off the back of that, established a bit of a profile for the YST. And then in kind of the late John Major period of government here in the UK, he, who was an avid cricketer, had a look at our education policy at the time, which was focusing on different subject areas to drive standards. And there were arts colleges and maths colleges and science colleges, but there were sports colleges. So we got involved in that. We're very privileged to play for over 10 years in the specialist sports college movement. And that was the time that we really started to unlock the power of sport to develop all of those attributes of young people which drive their performance in the classroom. So we couldn't claim that what we did in sport directly made performance in maths and English improve, but we helped young people either with understanding how they learn, with their communication, with their self-confidence, all of the things which enabled them to perform better in the classroom. So that set us on this journey of working particularly to use the power of sport to help the education process. But fundamentally, David, it led us to where we are now, which is with declining well-being in our young generation, which I know isn't just a UK issue, it's an issue in many parts of the world. We've actually not put the academic stuff to one side, but that's not our primary focus now. Young people have got much more fundamental issues than whether they get their 5 GCSEs and so on. It's really raw stuff now. Are they well enough to enjoy their childhood, to get the best that school's got to offer them, and importantly, that they stay out of harm's way through their formative years. So we've sort of stayed in education, but much more focused on how we use play, sport and physical activity to contribute to a whole range of measures that need to be, in place to support young people's well-being in the current age, in the current context within which young people are growing up.
Wow, sounds like quite the journey, and having to navigate through that. But obviously, you've always had young people and children at the front of mind, and physical activity. But the well-being piece is coming out really strong for me now, from what you're saying, Ali. And and I can remember, just back to the education piece, a previous conversation that we had around the correlation between physical education and educational attainment. And I think you said that when people are going in for exams, you always see them hanging around, and they might be just hands in their head, or but what about if they just went for a run for 30 minutes beforehand? And that really stuck in my mind, because you just feel so good, and them creative juices start flowing. So I thought that was really interesting. But in terms of that link between physical activity and school, education attainment, and well-being, you've done a lot of work in this space for the Youth Sport Trust?
Yeah, we have. And it goes back to what I was just saying a few minutes ago, Dave. When we were looking after specialist sports colleges, they became the fastest improving schools in the education system in England. Notwithstanding, many of them started from a low point.
Yeah.
It was the rate of progress that was quickest. And we're utterly convinced that was about creating an environment where young people felt good about themselves. They were active, they were socially interactive. We did a lot of work around youth voice, youth empowerment, and using sport as a vehicle to develop leadership skills in young people. Yeah. And we feel it was that culture and climate in the school that was helping build belief in young people. But interestingly, as we've got more into this, we've looked at more and more of the research, and we had a gentleman called Dr. John Ratey, who is a neuroscientist, professor from Harvard University. He came to our conference a couple of years ago and really talked about the relationship between body and brain, and physical activity and neuroplasticity, and the simple fact of movement. So your example there about getting children to run before an exam, that I use a lot, I use the other one a lot, where I talk about PE teachers should have what should be written on the back of their t-shirt isn't the name of the department or what latest football championships they won. What should be on the back of their t-shirt is we're busy making brain cells, because physical activity does kind of help neurogenesis and all those sorts of things. And what we were then able to kind of realize is actually, if you look at brain scans of young people who sit for 20 minutes before an exam and those who are active, you can see all the neural activity on the brain scans are the ones that are moving. And we've known this for years, actually. We've known about improvement in concentration. We've known about the release of chemicals in the body, which improves the mood state. Those are all the things we want young people to feel before they go into an exam or a test. And actually, they're the things we want young people to feel every day. So it's not a one-dimensional model that if we're active, this happens and this improves our learning. It's a whole range of things that play, sport and physical activity unlock in us, which contribute to helping us do other things in our lives, and for children, particularly their education. I talked earlier about just being able to use feedback. Physical education and sport has way more feedback loops than any other subject. You know, if you think about your PE lesson, the teacher's buzzing around all the time, giving bits of feedback to children about how to improve their performance.
Yeah.
Whereas other subjects, sometimes the feedback might come when you get your book back, when it's been marked, you know, it's kind of so there are loads of things that we can do around that. And what's exciting is there is a growing evidence base internationally and domestically with studies which show children, I think it was even the Department for Education published a document which in black and white talked about children at Key Stage 2 having almost a term's progress further if the young people were more active, or the more active child had up to a term's progress faster than their peers. And the same, you know, those children who are most active in primary schools on average perform better in their GCSE. So there's really good stuff there. But what's important is we understand why. We don't just think send children on a 5-mile cross country, which they hate, which they never talk to anybody, which for some of them is beyond them and destroys their confidence. That's going to improve. It's not. It's the way we do it and the way we use it.
Yeah, I remember those orienteering days for sure. I would have never thought that I would have ended up becoming a runner, but so I think the environment is, like you said, is really important. But in terms of the science is there, you know, obviously we know there's the benefits and to all this exercise, and then the educational improvements and stuff. But do you feel that government gets it and schools? Because obviously you're in a really great position to influence that. Is that, you know, is it moving in the right direction? Have we got enough PE in schools to get the outcomes that you're talking about?
Really, really good questions, David, to which I'd love to be able to give you a really positive answer. And I think it's a mixed picture. So there's a few reasons. So probably one of the most fundamental reasons, which is occupying a lot of our time and energy at the moment, is while physical education and school sport can deliver these sorts of outcomes for young people, they can only do it if the people delivering are aware that those are the outcomes they're striving for, that they're intentional in their instruction, they're looking for the teachable moments, they're planning for those outcomes, rather than just hoping somehow by playing football, by osmosis, children will become, you know, better human beings and better learners and improve well-being. It just doesn't happen. You have to do it with that intent.
Right. So
we've still got a big job to do on both helping the profession change its pedagogy and its approach to the subject. I then think with school leaders, we've had way more traction on the wellbeing agenda than the PE and sport agenda. So for the Youth Sport Trust, we use the wellbeing language, or the language of wellbeing, way more. And I haven't come across a head teacher yet who doesn't want their students to be well and happy. It's in all of them. But of course, some of them, that doesn't correlate with PE and sport. That might be their own experiences. It might be the quality of what's going on in their school, in the PE department. But so those two are quite linked. I think schools are up for anything actually at the moment that will help improve well-being, because it's fast becoming the biggest barrier to learning in the classroom. You know, schools have spent years on high quality teaching and learning across the curriculum, but if children aren't well enough to learn, it doesn't matter how good the teaching is. So I think schools are really up for it, but we've got to position physical education as synonymous with well-being, not synonymous with trophies, the best performing teams, and as we've already talked about, painful cross countries, which got lots of people off sport. So we've got to change that. Coming to kind of government, no, we're not there. We're absolutely not there. Physical education is core in the English national curriculum, but we have a school landscape where schools can acquire freedoms by becoming academies, which means they become independent of the local authority and much more autonomous in their decision making and their leadership. So they don't have to follow the national curriculum if they don't want to. The head teacher and the governing body have ultimate authority on what's the best education for those children. So there's limited centralised pressure on schools to do this at the moment. And We also sometimes suffer, and this isn't just us, and this isn't our ministers, but ministers are often affected by their own experiences. And I was a PE teacher, and I know I did lots and lots of bad practice. Of God forbid, I might have had the Secretary of Education in one of my classes that I taught, and at that time when I was teaching PE, I was more about trophies and technical competence. I certainly wasn't looking at physical education through a wellbeing lens. So we've probably got to keep working at the grassroots with PE teachers and educators, classroom teachers, help them make the best use of this brilliant subject.
Yeah.
And it's been a decade that we've got people who are coming through who've actually got it because they've experienced it and they're positive about it and they make those decisions. So yeah, we keep chipping away.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all you can do. And it does seem like what the wellness movement is gathering momentum. And, I like what you're talking about in terms of every child. It's not just about, physical activity. It's about a whole bunch of things about their well-being and, can they cope and have the right skills or, tools to be able to manage their journey through life. Or it's a challenging time when you're a young person and there's certainly a lot going on at home, etc. And I was really chuffed to see I think it's Well Schools that you've just launched. I think it is. And where you're talking about well-being at the heart of education. Could you provide a little bit of background about that? You've probably covered a little bit of it, but yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, no problem at all. So it's sort of a response to again what I said earlier, where head teachers have been coming to us, kind of pulling their hair out, saying, what can we do to support both young people who aren't feeling well in themselves, but more importantly, how can we do things to make sure that the challenges of this generation, whether it's the digital age, plethora of unhealthy choices in their lifestyles, from diet to antisocial activity and so on, how can we equip young people with the personal resilience and the understanding and the skills to be able to cope and better still thrive in this kind of changing world? So we looked back actually to specialist sports colleges and said, well, why did that work? Yes, it was a government policy at the time with some funding behind it, but was it really the government that made all the difference there? Or was it the funding that made all the difference there? And it wasn't actually. It was about a movement of schools on a common mission who were prepared to innovate, share, and inspire each other to do more and do different in education. So the school movement is a free to access community. We've simply put some of our reserves into the creation of a web platform just to allow schools to be able to do those three things, really, to innovate, to share, and to inspire each other.
Yeah.
But what we've done is we've provided a really simple blueprint just to try and bring what we mean by well schools to life. And we've done that through consultation with schools. They've helped us build that blueprint. And it's got three simple pillars to it. So a well school would be well led.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be a school where the well-being of the staff is considered and is important. You can't teach well-being through people who are stressed out, overweight, in self-confidence. Those people have got to be great role models. And where the governing body is looking after the leadership team's well-being. So much stress on our school leaders at the moment. So there's a well-led pillar, which is all about those who are delivering to the young people. And then there are two young people facing pillars. One, which is well prepared, which is that the school makes every effort to ensure young people develop both physical and health literacy. So I know physical literacy is a term we really understand now, I think, in education or getting there. Health literacy too. So young people are literate in their health and how to maintain positive health. And they have all of the confidence and competence to move in a way that makes them feel good instead of in a way that makes them feel embarrassed, uncomfortable, or anything like that. So that's the second pillar, and that really drives to the heart of where physical education sits in a well school. Mm-hmm. And then the final pillar is well equipped. And this is helping schools to think differently about the curriculum and co-curricular offer. And is it really relevant for every child? And is it really relevant for the world that we're sending them out into? So again, in England, we've got quite a narrowing of the curriculum with a small number of core subjects assuming prominence, which again, has good rationale behind it in terms of those subjects being important to a certain range of professions and careers later on. But it's very limiting if you're a child and you just don't excel, or if you struggle in those subjects. It's kind of saying, well, you're really, you're never going to achieve through education. You're always going to be at the back of the class. You're always going to feel left behind. That's not going to help well-being. So whether it's the curriculum or that co-curricular program where we're trying to develop character and life skills and employability skills to complement what happens in the taught curriculum, all of that is about well-being. So I hope, David, what that does is it says a well school isn't a school that just has healthy options on the school dinner menu, has some first aid training by the school nurses, and sends every child on a daily mile. Yeah, those things are important, but this is much bigger. This is the culture and climate of the school, from the way that they feel about themselves and the school, through the curriculum, right into some of those specifics of physical and health literacy.
Yeah, I really like the fact that you start with the teachers and make sure that their well-being is first and foremost, because if they're looking after themselves and their role models as well, then it can obviously provide to everybody else. But what's coming up for me there is like, no one's left behind. There's something for everybody. You're catering for all, and it's whole person well-being. So it's not just one part of it, which I think is great. How long did that take to kind of pull together? Because that seems like you couldn't have just said to one of your staff member, "Oh, we need a well school," just pull that together. It sounds like a lot of consultation and planning to get that going.
Yeah, if I'm honest, the germ of the idea is probably about 18 months old.
Yeah.
But realistically, we've turned the engines up high in the last months, because we were moving towards this anyway, because children's well-being was not great.
Yeah.
But the impact of the global pandemic, coronavirus, lockdown, pause in education for many young people, loss of sense of identity, belonging, routine, all of those things have just magnified the issue. So we had to really pick up the pace. It's been a great reminder actually in the YAST is not to pontificate too long. If something needs doing, just get on and do it. I mean, the Well School movement, we've built the blueprint, built the platform. Its success will now be in what schools do with it. We're not going to come up with all sorts of products to push at these schools. It was genuinely meant to be a school-led movement where schools could be inspired by this and motivated then to try and do different things and to share what they were doing and to inspire each other then to keep raising the bar. So yeah, and as you say, I think you use, David, we talk about well schools and well-beings, and you've been talking about well-beings as well, I know, in your work. And that's why everybody from the caretaker and the lady who serves the lunches or the man who serves the lunches right through to the head teacher and the class teacher, everybody needs to be a well-being.
Absolutely. Yeah, we call it well-being without boundaries is our purpose. So it's definitely aligned with your values. So yeah, I think it's great. I just got one last question on it. How will you be looking to measure and evaluate the program, and have many schools taken it up so far?
Yeah, so we've got we launched the platform, let me get this right now, about the second or third week in September.
Yeah.
So we talked about it at our conference last February. We said it's coming. We're going to be bringing one. By this time next year we'll have one. And then, as I say, the last 6 months have been a whirlwind of accelerated progress. And we launched it out there, and we started with a pilot group of schools. So had some consultant schools help us with the concept. Then a group of schools that got going with it. And started to put it into place, so that when we launched the platform, there were already about 30 odd schools who were already sharing their practice and what they were doing. And now we've got 300 schools using the platform. Our target is to get to 6,000 by 2022. So we're thinking big.
Yeah.
still 6,000 schools is only really about a quarter of the English education system. So, there's a long way to go. And to answer your question about how will we measure success, of course, numbers is important, but we're much more interested in what appears on that website. What will tell us if this is working is if there are examples of practice where people have, completely overhauled their curriculum, where there are new programs being introduced in schools to support staff well-being, where someone's decided to change the school values because they weren't inclusive enough and weren't holistic enough in terms of that. That will be our measure of success when we start to see fundamental shifts in the way schools are operating and what they're doing. That tells us culture and climate is changing. And within the 6,000 well schools, we want 4,000 of those to have transformed their PE curriculum. So we're very deliberately in well schools going up PE, because if it's still 6 weeks of football, 6 weeks of hockey, 6 weeks of gymnastics, it's just not going to deliver well-being. It's going to, again, deliver probably, a knowledge and understanding and a competence in sport to maybe a third of the children in any class, any year group. And we want PE to be for everybody. And as we said several times on this interview so far, driving at wellness, physical, social and emotional wellness.
Yeah, cool. Well, I look forward to keeping an eye on how it goes. I wish you all the best with that. And it just shows you how forward thinking you were 18 months ago, and with this program, and now it's more important than ever given the pandemic. So yeah, well done. And we're just coming. We've got a couple of questions left, and we'll just step outside of the Youth Sport Trust, but there's about, I think, 15 million people in England with a chronic condition out of around 66 million. So if you could nudge the system, if you could nudge one part of the system to improve the well-being of the population, what would that be? And that's a challenging question, because as somebody rightly told me yesterday, systems thinking, it's not just one thing, which was a very good pickup. But yeah, if there was just one thing that you could do, what would that be, Ali?
Gosh, there are so many things that I would want to push to be different. I think one of the things that we have been privileged to work on more than ever in the last couple of years is early years, and supporting parents to understand the importance of those formative early years in physical development and the role of physical development in social development and school readiness. So as you say, it's all interlinked. If we got that bit right, but then when they went into primary school, it was all wrong, then it solved the thing. But I think early years education and the information that parents particularly don't get, certainly in this country, around how to support the physical development of their child and how important those early years are, when so much hardwiring is going on in the child. That's the time to try and get some of the competencies and the confidence and the role modeling right. So yeah, I'd probably go for there, but honestly, I could have picked any element of the system, and there's work to be done, as we've said.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, and I agree. But that's a great one, so I will certainly be writing that one down. In terms of you in the system personally, obviously we've talked a lot about your work, and I did your bio there, which was, I think, the longest one that I've done so far. So I'm sure that was a little bit embarrassing. But in terms of you and your career, how do you want to contribute and influence it? And I suppose you didn't get an MBE for nothing, so.
Do you know that this is going to sound a little bit trite, but I don't have a personal career ambition. I never ever have, and I think it's simply about working out, for all of us, working out where we can make a difference, where our individual experiences and skills and attributes take us. And then wherever you find yourself, just trying to do something that's a bit beyond your own well-being and your own life chances. And so I have no idea. I know, David, that I've been at the YST, this is my 17th year, and
Wow.
I'm very conscious of groupthink, and sometimes you might play a role at some point in an organization's growth and development, but if you stay too long, you can hold it back. So I'm pretty sure that my contribution to the YST, the best contribution I can make is probably behind me now. And all I know is I will want to continue to work in the area of physical activity, play, sport, the outdoors, always been very close to my heart. And coming back to with the question you asked me right at the beginning, it's what I know, and I understand it, and I know how I can make a difference. But I have an elderly mother who's suffering from dementia, and that the rise in cases of that illness is quite serious for us. So maybe this work should be done around other things where physical activity, sport, the outdoors can make a contribution to well-being. Whether it be children, I have no idea, but I just know it'll want to be something that I feel I can contribute to. So bit of a rubbish answer to your question, but I honestly don't have a career ambition or a next goal. I just want to keep trying to help where I can and use what I know to the best effect.
Well, that passion and commitment and services to sport, in terms of the impact, it's there for all to see, Ali. So keep doing what you're doing, which is a lot, and leading your team at the Youth Sport Trust. Yeah, I've really enjoyed our conversation. It's flew
Me
by.
too. I
really appreciate your time, and obviously, my thoughts are for all of you over in the UK. It's challenging time at the moment. So,
Thank you, and likewise, David, to you and all the people who'll be listening to this. Keep doing what they're doing, because I'm sure the people who are interested in this sort of conversation will be people who are making a difference and will continue to make a difference. And at a time when illness is obsessing the world, it's just the right moment to be refocusing on wellness and keeping us well, rather than trying to battle illness all the time.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's a lovely way to finish. Okay, Ali, well, thank you again, and I will hope to catch up with you in person soon.
Yes, that would be lovely. That would be lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.